When you think of a home recording studio, you might think of a dedicated room with a high-end computer and audio interface, several microphones, sound treatment, maybe lots of equipment such as guitars, guitar amps, keyboards, synths, outboard gear, etc. But a home studio can simply be this. Hello, home music creators. Yes, a home studio can simply be a laptop, an audio interface, and a pair of headphones. You don't need a dedicated room, you don't need sound treatment, all you need is somewhere to put that equipment down. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 types of home studio which increase in complexity and cost, starting with that very simple setup I just showed you. Type 1 is a portable studio based around a laptop. All you need is a laptop, an audio interface and a pair of headphones. You'll also need DAW, digital audio workstation software running on the laptop. I use Reaper and I highly recommend it for beginners. This is a fully portable setup that you could easily fit in a bag or a suitcase. And your actual studio could be anywhere. It could be a room in your house, it could be a hotel room halfway around the world. Now it is possible to record using this setup, but you just need to be mindful of where you are. For example, I wouldn't record vocals in a hotel room for fear of disturbing your neighbouring guests. I would also probably be too embarrassed, to be honest. In that situation, it would be better to record purely electrical instruments, such as recording a keyboard over MIDI, or recording an electric guitar using amp sims, where you just plug the electric guitar directly into the audio interface. If you're thinking you don't have the room for a home recording studio, or you don't have the money to buy lots of expensive equipment, then don't think like that. You just don't need that. All you need is your laptop, a cheap $50 audio interface, and any old pair of headphones to get started. Home studio type 2 is a permanent home studio in a multi-purpose room. Now, this type of setup is exactly what I've got here. Just out of shot there, I have a computer, an audio interface, I have some open back headphones for mixing. I have some microphones, they're not permanently set up, but I do have several microphones in this room. And I have, obviously guitars and amps. But this room is used for other things. It's used for working from home, drying, washing, working out, watching Netflix, etc. Obviously, this is more of a permanent setup than the first portable type of home studio, but it's still not a dedicated room. This room is still used for lots of other things. Typically in this setup, your computer will be a desktop rather than a laptop. It doesn't have to be, but mine is. It's just down there, out of shot. And there'll be a permanent desk or workstation. A studio monitor speakers are an option in this type of setup, but you don't have to have them. A decent pair of open back headphones will do nicely instead. This type of setup is more suited to recording acoustically, e.g. vocals or acoustic guitar, anything that's going to make quite a loud noise when you record it. However, I'd still recommend using a DI to record wherever possible. For example, an electric guitar, just plug it straight into the audio interface and get the electric guitar sounds from an amp sim rather than a real amplifier. This is exactly what I do in my home studio here. The third type of studio is a dedicated sole-purpose room. Here we're getting into the situation where you can spend stupid amounts of dollars. It's similar to the previous type in that it is a permanent setup, but now we have a dedicated room that is used solely for your music production activities and nothing else. It could be a spare room, an attic conversion, converted garage, or a purpose-built extension. Now the room could and should be acoustically treated. For example, bass traps installed and reflections dampened to give the room as flat a sound as possible. And this should help unwanted echo and frequency build up and give you the truest possible representation of your music when you play it through your speakers. As the room's used solely for music making, there may be other permanently installed equipment, such as guitar amps, microphones or microphone stands, etc. There could be outboard gear such as compressors and limiters, and if you're very lucky, you might even have a fully mic'd up drum kit. You could even have a small part of the room sectioned off as a vocal recording booth. And I'd say it's always worth having a MIDI keyboard, even if you're not really a keyboard player. Entering MIDI is such a common task to do in a home studio, and it's usually easier than manually doing it in your DAW program using the piano roll editor. So those are the 3 types of home recording studio. If you are planning a studio, don't forget the cost of cables. Don't cheap out on cables, it's a false economy. Always get decent high quality cables and they will last you a long time. The beauty of a home studio is that you can build it up gradually. So you can start with type 1 and then over the years gradually build up into more of a type 3 scenario with a dedicated room and equipment. Well, let's get one thing clear. You do not need a super expensive type 3 permanent studio setup to make quality music these days. With today's technology, you really can get fantastic results from the Type 1 studio with just a laptop, audio interface and a pair of headphones. For much more details on the different types of home studio, there is a companion article on homemusiccreator.com. I'll put the link in the description below. Here you'll find the typical costs of the different types of studio, the key components you will need, and the different activities that can typically be performed in each type of studio. Please check that article out if you're thinking of putting together your own setup. It should be really useful for you. This is Paul from Home Music Creator signing off. See you in the next video. Cheers.